I'm in the video. Alright, so I did get a couple of people. One an email and this post by Anti-Gaia about some guy, Isol Mazazard, made some video talking about anti-natalism. Here's a link for those interested. And yeah, it really was, I played a minute of it. I don't like him either. It's always kind of funny. There's something about his personality I can't stomach, and his videos annoy me. He rambles on and on. I don't even know why he's relevant to these people, but, whatever. He blocked comments on his post, so I can't be bothered to endure an hour of that tripe without being able to vent in the comments. He definitely rambles. So apparently people like that, though. He's pretty much said something like anti-nihilism is nebulous bullshit philosophy. Suffering is worth it because in the real world you can find grassroots ways of dealing with overpopulation. Yeah, I did see that part where he's talking about, population control. He's not talking about the subject of the ethics of procreation, playing God, being creators of a living thing, and taking responsibility for its welfare. That he didn't deal with. That's the subject, right? Should be. And from an ethicist point of view, obviously, the ethical questions of what life is, in fact, which is a parasitic infection, a growth on the surface of a planet, that, when sentient, can just end up torching itself because it's on an island and it becomes cannibalistic. Truth. It's on an island and it becomes cannibalistic. And they wish to sentence things to be cannibalistic. Because they're cruel and evil and stupid. Maybe stupid first, but it doesn't really matter. So anyway, it's nice that they're a couple, but from the little bit I saw, she wasn't doing much talking. He just goes on and on and on. So I'll jump around. I don't really want to watch an hour of this either, personally.
Hey guys!
Hi!
We're doing the most hateful and invidious form of YouTube video today. The response video! Everyone hates response videos!
Yeah, so it's not rational to actually interact online. That would be silly.
But all the time, well, not all the time. We don't even watch YouTube all that often. We don't.
Yeah, we just make stuff up and like to talk, and we want other people to listen, but we don't have to pay attention to arguments. Something like that, I guess.
Whenever we do, you're like, oh, we should have recorded us watching this.
Yes. Sometimes we watch YouTube and we make catty remarks.
Yes. See, that's already right there. Oh, catty. That's not a guy kind of word. See, I just never in my life would I go, oh yeah, we sat around, we made catty remarks. I mean, this is really gay. It's like what girly boys do. But whatever.
It's like, well, why did...
Maybe you can get on that show, whatever it's called, the club, or the... What is that called? The little henyas, doing their little henya thing.
And we just record ourselves making catty remarks and upload...
Ah, he said it twice. Ooh. Catty.
That to YouTube. So we started watching this old video from that vegan couple about the perennial debate between anti-nat...
Yeah, it's what, the perennial debate that just showed up a few years ago. So, yeah. Whatever. Sure.
Natalists and just anti-natalists. I mean, nobody is a pro-natalist.
Right. Which is absolute nonsense. Obviously, everybody who natals is a pro-natalist. So it's just kind of idiotic.
Nobody. Not even those Catholic people who say they are. I mean, okay, you got to be a really sheltered Catholic person. Like, oh, remember Steve from high school? Yeah, Steve, who became a crackhead? Do you think...
So, again, the question is, do you think people with a genetic disorder, like, you're kind of baldy, and I guess her disorder would be having bad taste in men. Yeah, that would be her disorder. So, should they genetically reproduce? So, he's cutting anti-natalism some question about whether you should have a kid with claws for hands on purpose, or one with Down syndrome, or something like that. That's not the subject. So, trivial, so we'll just jump ahead a little bit and see if there's anything.
Ask before you lay eggs in it.
Yeah.
But sure, I would be delighted to have one more kid. I already got one. I would be delighted to have one, not two, not three, no.
1 and 1 doesn't equal 2. Okay. So it's about what you would like. And it doesn't have anything to do with what you can clean up in terms of a mess you could possibly make. So if you go to a gambling house, all right, and you're going to play dice, and on the dice are skull and crossbones on each dice. And let's say they're 20-sided dice just for fun. And so you think the odds are pretty low, no big deal. But if you get two, snake eyes, 2 skull and crossbones, a gun pops out of the table and shoots your wife. You still going to gamble? No, well, see, when it's some non-thing, when it's a thing in the non-averse, and you're just going to pluck it out, you don't know it yet. You don't know its disposition, its welfare. You don't know its sensitivities. What if I found the thing that your wife fears the most, and the worst possible kind of death, and I put that on the dice? You still going to play the game? I mean, there's a ton of thought experiments that get to the core of this subject, which is, do you have the right to be a selfish fuck and risk somebody else's welfare? Do you have a right to draw straws, because you like to draw straws, it's fun for you, and then stick them in other people's pockets and decide for somebody else a fate because it's fun for you? Is that ethical behavior? And the simple answer is, of course it's not. What gives you the right to play games like that for your own gratification? Now, if you had some mission, instead of saying I would like, if you said something like, I think it's, I'm ethically obligated, to create living things because they are going to serve some necessary purpose, and I'm quite sure that I'm competent to mold this person into this productive vehicle that's so necessary to saving so much suffering in the world. He's going to prevent so much suffering, my child. You're not making that kind of rational argument. You're just making an argument from, I like to gamble, especially with somebody else's welfare. And somebody shouldn't call you an evil piece of shit? Oh, amazing. Amazingly stupid people on this planet. Here's 2 of them having children. Amazingly stupid.
2 hours. And I didn't get the job, but just seeing it as I was in the waiting room, waiting for the interview, just seeing some of the reunions was pretty depressing,
There are people who have those reunions in jail, you know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, anyway, what does that have to do with what I'm doing? Okay, the fact that my kid could be born defective, and that he could have a life circumstance that ruins him, he becomes an alcoholic or some other kind of thing, he hurts other people in his life and ends up tragically dying in a horrible way after living a cruddy life. That doesn't bother you, right? Because you're an asshole. Amazing. Or what if your son was a Donald Trump? Some asshole who felt really good about themselves, had a wonderful life, but was a horrible, awful person. Just ruined other women, did all kinds of, casual and reckless things. Maybe even killed a few people with his recklessness. You feel good about that? Good job, you'd say to yourself? I deserve a pat on the back. Is that how you think? Asshole?
It was completely
glib fucking asshole.
Confident that this was going to work. I was like, well, maybe you know what you're talking about. Let's find out the hard way. Taking other people's opinions seriously is it's
yes, but you don't take risk seriously, and of course don't get the consent of the thing that's going to be the major player in the little game you want to play. You're certainly not getting its consent. You're not getting its opinion. You're just listening to the voices that say, everything will be okay, everything will be okay, everything will be okay. You're not listening to the voice that says, well, if the worst case scenario happens, you're going to have a mess you can't clean up. You're going to create a huge debt in the world, and it won't be anything you can ever clean up. It'll be like killing people as a drunk driver or something. You're just going to be stuck with this huge fucking bad that you did, and there ain't going to be any way to clean it up. You're just going to be a torturer for no good reason except your own damn fucking ego.
It's one of the key, crucial skills of middle age, I'd say. As opposed to like when you're a little kid in the schoolyard, you're just like, no, you don't know what you're talking about, no. You know, like any...
Giggles. Eek.
Anything people say to you is really easily refuted with that schoolyard mentality. All right, so this is That Vegan Couple, and I don't know. You get to watch us roll our eyes while we listen to their life-changing advice about not having kids.
In September 2014, it was a mutual decision. I'm not going to talk about the reasons of why we had the operation. We'll link the videos here. Go and watch those videos and...
Okay, so, yes, somebody chose to be rational. Yay! And they're going to mock it. Great.
You opened a mukbang video and it was like, okay, so this is... I don't know, is their content really like
look, there are some
helping raise people?
No, there are some people who are in such a low situation in life, who are so depressed that they feel like that's their mom, sitting there watching this woman do a mukbang. They feel like that's a paternal relationship.
A mukbang? Whatever. I don't really want to know what a mukbang is.
Who's alluding to something we don't know. That's like it's a euphemism. You know, I have a European background, and like people in the audience know what you mean. That's what I assume.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, I assume there's something more to that story. I have unknown to me. So regular viewers will know what you said again.
Being pregnant, I thought it was quite freaky, like having someone grow inside your body. It's like a little alien, and I used to think of it as more of an experiment than something that I really innately wanted to do.
So it's another, talking about the subject of anti-natalism, again from some sort of personal perspective, as if the argument should be made about what's your personal interest, not about the ethics of the activity. Just like if you like to eat meat, it's okay to eat meat because the animals don't feel. Like somehow that proves it. Because you like it, it can't be wrong. And if you don't like meat, you just happen to not like it, that somehow that's automatically an ethical good. You're a wonderful person when you sacrifice nothing and you recognize nothing, like people being vegan for health reasons. It's not an act based on reason. It's an act based on personal interest, not recognizing, oh, there's a bad being perpetrated and I'm preventing the bad. Shit. So let's all not have brains. Let's just have stomachs and sex organs, and let's pretend that that should decide what we want to have happen in the world. We should let our stomachs and our sex organs decide. And the ego associated with the sex organ. Apparently this guy can't get it up, if he hasn't made some babies. It's sort of critical to his self-esteem somehow, or, he needs to play with babies, Ooh. That's a little creepy, isn't it? He wants to nurture them. He loves them like Michael did. Ugh. Fuck.
I didn't have strong maternal instincts, I don't feel, until I was about, I think, 29, 30 years old. And
oh dear, that sounds like a video really hard to watch. I mean, you should just get to the subject. I mean, all this preliminaries, I don't know. You could go year by year. What did I think of butterflies when I was 7? And then when I was 8, I thought butterflies. And then when I was 9, I thought butterflies were... And then when I was 10, I had a little change because a butterfly gave me a dirty look. And it made me suspicious.
And responsibility is a huge part of being a parent. You were a tourist who paid a fee to spend a couple of hours with a kid in an orphanage, But I mean, for you to say on camera, that you were their parent and they were your children, well, then you abandoned them, didn't you? So
Yeah, that's a fact of life, though. Is the fact is you have this huge hypocrisy in terms of these expressions of this good emotion you call love, and you give it to things based on their genetic code, for fuck's sake. I mean, it's completely insane. Like the brain of the orphan child is somehow different than the brain of your own child by any kind of logical standard, when that can't possibly be true. And yet somehow you make it a rational equation. Somehow you make that bigotry into something reasonable when it's overtly not reasonable. The child isn't possession. My is irrelevant to the word child, for fuck's sake. It can't possibly have anything to do with what is meaningful as the property of child. The property child, me, mine, theirs, thems, has nothing to do with it. And yet you're making it have something to do with it. Because of your need. Because of your psychological problems. Not because it's right, but explicitly because you have to rationalize your stupid, sick psychology.
for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, I don't know how long, I shouldn't say, you were a part-time babysitter for these kids, and that's it. And if you don't really know and don't really appreciate how deep the difference is between that and being their parent.
Well, again, if you don't appreciate how there's almost exactly nothing that should be different. There's no way you should treat somebody else's child any different than you would treat your own in terms of your concern, your worry, your desire that they be properly inspired or motivated, or that their psychology not be brutalized. How does it make any fucking difference? Oh, that's right, it doesn't make any fucking difference. You're just bigots. Egocentric, selfish bigots.
Whenever they get their own job and achieve independence, which is normally about 5 years after you graduate university in this century. I mean, it's a long-term commitment. But no, you don't know what it's like. You know, sorry, I'm just going with that vegan couple. You know, kind of shame on you for saying this. And I think any parent watching this would really cringe. I know the word cringe is overused.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, and this idea that we can't imagine your perverse gameplay, okay, that somehow you know that this is what life is cleaning the nappies and such, and watching the kid puke out its food and all that fun stuff, and then watching it grow up and fall down, and being there when potentially traumatic damage might be happening to your kid, and experiencing those feelings. And then when they get a little bit older and they start going out into the real world alone, okay, without you watching to see what's coming for them, what kind of baddies are heading for them, you think that's all part of fun, and you think we, as people not insanely stupid, can't imagine what it would be like, having your 17-year-old son going out for getting his driver's license, when he's really probably not responsible enough to be flying around in something that weighs a couple of tons, and you're just going to say, oh yeah, it's all right. I wasn't anything like an asshole when I was a kid. I wasn't anything like lucky to get through my childhood without hurting someone else or hurting myself in some kind of catastrophic way. You can't imagine that because you lived a life as a child, you don't know what it is to have children. Yeah, wrong answer. No, I can't imagine. What I can't imagine is how my parents could be so fucking glib when I think back. How they could be so fucking relaxed when they were holding such a massive responsibility in their fucking hands. That's right. I don't know how they could peaceably eat their dinner even. Contemplating the future of the individuals they've thrust into a very dangerous and ugly and smelly and crappy world. A world where deserve will likely have not a motherfucking thing to do with it. You people are just amazingly glib.
As if you walk into a dark room and there's a snake coiled in the corner hissing at you. You know, so you may not have had experience of that, but if you have, it's not even fear, but you have this instinct that fills in your mind, there's a snake in the corner. You know, it leaps out at you. Your whole mind, you know, becomes very clear and bright. You got millions of years of evolution behind you for that kind of reaction.
You shouldn't even bring that up. Because, yes, all the evolution is all for a negative purpose, to modify a molecule. And throughout all of the other organisms, and even our own history, the way that game was played is the things you killed the most were children. The very thing you say you love is the thing that got killed the most brutally and harshly and cruelly of all the things that got killed. They got the worst of it, the children. The things you're sentencing to exist were at the highest risk of dying. And that's the ethics you say we should live for.
There are moments like that where you feel instinct without any of the intermediate layers of...
Yes, instinct, whatever that is. Okay, yeah, this notion that there's some sort of instinct besides me hungry, me horny. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, there really isn't.
Cognition and imagination and reason where, you know, your mind reacts. Sure, I wake up in the middle of the night, you know, where is my daughter? Is my daughter okay? It's awful. That's what it's like being bonded to a child. You know, it's, and, you know, living, it's because for the first year of my daughter's life, I was with her 24/7. I didn't even have a job. I was a full-time stay-at-home parent.
Okay, right, and right there, yes, we're completely different human beings. Because if there isn't a male instinct, it certainly isn't being a whatever duty ass wiper thingy. No. But anyway, again, that's a separate subject. So he talks about the idea of worrying for his daughter. And what if the worst happens? So what if you roll your dice and it comes up the skull and crossbones and your daughter dies of cancer brutally over a 4-year period? You're saying, I'll say to everybody it was worth it. It was worth it. I had a great time. And, yeah, well, she didn't, but I did. I had a great time. So it was certainly worth it. Do it. Go ahead. Risk it. It'll be okay. You'll get over it. It's only a fucking kid, for fuck's sake. I'll make a new one. And what's your rationale? I love it. I care for it. I worry for it. I see it destroyed right before my eyes in a brutally horrible way. It's all okay. Hey, everybody, it's okay. So you're not going to be a hypocrite, right? So if the worst happens to you, and it happens to people, their first kid dies, second kid dies, you'll tell them, go for it. What's a little pain? Who cares? Who takes this shit seriously? Really? Who takes having kids seriously? Really? Dime a dozen. Spread some more horror and pain and suffering. For what purpose? To satisfy your glib egos. That's all. Because you have some ego problems. You can't figure out how to make a life of your own. You have to somehow live behind something else, vicariously through something else. You know, because you can't handle the job of living. And yet you're pro-life. Amazing.
Hold her and cradle her and rock her and feed her and, you know, wipe her bum and all this stuff you do. I don't know if you did any of that with these kids, but fundamentally, I mean, there's a creche in the background there. There's a cot. There's a baby's, you know, crib. You didn't buy that crib. You didn't assemble that crib. You didn't sit there next to that crib reading a book while the kid was sleeping.
Yeah. So like again, so we can't imagine their special parenty world because we weren't kids and we didn't live through it personally. Is that your argument? I wasn't really a kid and I didn't live through it personally. So I can't possibly imagine the experience. Yeah, I can. And I can imagine I wouldn't do it for my own benefit. There's no reasoning that at all makes it sensible for me personally going to profit from this incredible responsibility that would occupy every spare moment I have. Maybe I'll watch a movie. Oh, wait a minute, I can't watch a movie because I have to plan to protect my children from all the horrors that exist in the world. I have to make sure I'm going to be there, okay, in case their tightrope that I threw them on breaks. I have to figure out the net. I have to figure out a lot of things. I have to be ready for this job. So I can't have any free time anymore because I've got a fucking responsibility. You don't get it, asshole, glib fuck. Moving on. Oh, let's see what the laughy part was. Real endearing laughy.
And I remember thinking, oh, well, if the condom breaks and I happen to fall pregnant, oh, that's just the universe giving.
So, well, I guess that's a secret saying, oh yeah, that happened to us and we didn't give a shit. See, I've had it happen to me, of course. You just can't contain, my passion. And yeah, the right buttons are in my head, so I knew, hey, you gotta fix that. And I listened to that voice that says, you gotta fix that. Shit.
It's a sign we were meant to have a baby and that'll just be it. Well, of course that was never going to happen, and obviously
Yes, reckless, glib assholery.
it didn't happen. But I was actually quite...
Hashtag condoms.
Yeah, they work if you have any kind of brain at all.
Emotional. I did cry that night. It was just like this, the finality of it sunk in. And yes, of course, you can freeze your sperm for later on, and you can also have the operation reversed. But we knew that once we made this decision, we didn't want to do either of those options later on. So it was very much a final, this is it, this is happening.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's simple for me because, yeah, I just say, I wish they did that when you're, when they're circumcising you, because that's rational. Yes, sterilize me too, thank you. I would appreciate it if you get it all done at once. But whatever.
Now, post-vasectomy operation, completely different feeling. I felt like 1,000 tons of pressure and weight were lifted from my shoulders once he got the snip. It just felt so right and so 100% in the decision, and I've never ever looked back. In fact, I actually found like there was more, I don't want to call it doubt, but kind of going over the pros and cons more before the operation. And once the operation happened, I was like 100%, this is perfect, spot on, I feel so good about this. I've never...
So again, this is really not the subject of antinatalism, which is the ethics of having children, not the will it make me happy. The subject isn't what will make me happy. That's not the subject. The subject is it ethically all right to play God and pretend you can control the experiment, and that you can, and that there are that the downside risks are acceptable. That if catastrophe happens, it's okay. So it's like a nuclear plant kind of thing, and going in saying, well, meltdowns can happen. We're going to accept that. We haven't done everything we can do to stop it, which is not making the plant, and we're going to accept the risk. Now, if we were told that, ahead of time, that nuclear plants 3 of them will go bad out of, say, 200 made, maybe we would have said, no, we can't do this. You got to come up with better numbers than that. And what's our acceptable numbers? So then you're in trouble again. Because the risk is going to be total in terms of it's going to be decisive on the individual you're going to fuck. The thing going to get raped is going to get raped completely. There's not going to be any doubt about it. They're going to be imposed upon for your psychological problems. To solve your psychological problems, you're going to use them like some kind of stem cells or something. You're going to use them like some sort of fetus cream.
I haven't thought about it twice with any doubt, any hesitation.
All right, I don't want to be listening to the other video.
when you were 2 years old, how good were you at coping with a complete stranger speaking a foreign language as your primary caregiver? And then them cutting out when they want to get back on their vacation schedule. Go swimming or whatever. Sorry, it's dark. I mean, it's dark. It's funny, too. I don't even see the vasectomy itself, as an operation this way. Because it's really easy to manage pregnancy within a monogamous relationship. I don't really see a vasectomy at the point being to prevent your husband from getting you pregnant. I think...
Well, clearly it does make things simpler. So, I mean, it takes a lot of worry out of it. So I don't know why pretend it's not an issue. It's some issue. So I don't know why you were giggling about condoms before, and now you're talking as if, oh no, you can perfectly take care of that in a relationship. I don't know.
But, I think in a lot of societies, women didn't even have that choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a lot of traditional societies, women didn't even choose who they married. It's arranged by their parents or what have you. But yeah, if we're talking about being able to make a choice, sure. Different cultures and different levels of technology.
Right, so he talks about it like it's a past thing when, no, it's like half the people on Earth right now are still stuck in that world. Half the women on Earth right now, at least half, are in living that life right now, where it's not going to be their decision. Their fate isn't in their hands.
Dictate, different choices. But for most of human history, in terms of the first pregnancy, with women, it's like a 50% chance you're going to die. Mm-hmm. And so, second pregnancy, they were much safer if you survive your first pregnancy, then you're likely to survive.
I don't think that's anything close to an accurate statistic. The first child, you had a 50% chance of dying? Not really. No.
Yeah.
But it was pretty much flip the coin. Mm-hmm. So, for most of our history, a life and death decision, for the mother, let alone for the fate of the child thereafter.
Right, and that has nothing to do with the husband, right, who is just being glib about the whole damn thing, right? So again, it's just this idea that you people talk about how you're life lovers and all this crap, and I'd say your love is so superficial, because if you could accept a life on those terms, I'm for the purpose of having this child, for which serves nothing but some sort of band-aid for psychological problems, I'm going to risk losing the woman I love. I'm going to roll those dice with those skull and crossbones on them. And skull and crossbones that you're arguing were a 50-50 chance. And then you people are going to talk to me about how you know what love is. I'd say you don't even have a fucking clue. Not even close to a clue.
True that.
Well, that we've created. Yes, ideally, in a perfect ideal world, Luke and I would have very much enjoyed having our own children and raising them.
Whoa, so I actually wasn't expecting to go there. For me, that's a plot twist.
Yeah.
Oh, plot twist. Yeah, well, the whole idea that people can talk about, well, yeah, I can imagine us being apple pickers in, the south of France. And I can imagine us being, super cool people in, modern China. And I can imagine us being, going to Iran and being, people they throw rocks at and stuff. And I can imagine, maybe some people have no clue what their identity is, what they were suited for. They don't have any kind of narrow road they would like to travel in terms of tastes. They'll eat anything, apparently. Sleep with anything, apparently. Yeah, not me. No.
I didn't think she'd blame the world for why they don't have kids. See, I don't see it that way at all. I think it's a judgment call about who you are.
I didn't watch either.
Right, okay. So, yes, obviously, so somewhere in this video they made some statement about the fact that, look, the planet Earth is doomed. Some generation's going to be stuck with the liability. There's every prospect that human beings, there's no evidence that we're doing the peaceable thing. So we're just going to escalate the violence, and sooner or later a generation's going to live where a nuclear bomb goes off again. And it could be the next generation. And so I'm going to have a kid and place him in a world where nuclear bombs are going to start going off. Because I am a generous person. You could just point to Trump and say right there's reason not to have kids. This is what we call a leader now.
video that she mentioned, but she said that she didn't know they weren't vegan at the time that they were at this orphanage, and they didn't know the reasons for going vegan. And I assume they think it must be like knowing about ecological damage and the future of our planet.
Okay, so it's about the planet and the future of the planet, and that's the... So again, fuck the suffering. The suffering isn't the subject. You know, and of course it isn't for most of these people, because most of these fucking fake vegans think nature is a wonderful place. And it's just really cool that 10 lion cubs, for every lion cub that successfully gets to his first birthday, 10 of them get killed brutally. That's good. Those are good numbers. What are you complaining about? 30,000 dead little baby sea turtles for one sea turtle. One. 10,000 dead baby octopuses before they're a year old for one octopus. This is what they want to sentence living things to, is a quick, brutal death. Get born, brutally die. Get born, brutally die. And yeah, humans get to do, get born, go through a whole bunch of horrible crap and divorces and all kinds of evil shit, and then die. Fuck you! What retards.
Planet, environment, future of...
But look, to me, that's... I mean, look...
Oh, save the crocodiles! Yes, save the environment! Save the fucking meat grinder, the chrome-plated, Borgish, insanely blood-soaked meat grinder. Oh, save it, save it! We must grind the meat! Oh, you people are pathetically stupid.
So I got a cousin who's a gambling addict, you know, compulsive gambler. For him to make the decision not to have kids.
So are you. Newsflash.
It's, okay, pretty straightforward. But it's about who he is. It's about what he's...
So I don't know. So compulsive gambling is now a genetic disorder? Oh, please.
Equal up, etc. To make the decision on the basis of what the world is. I don't know if I can get behind that. You know, I think I think you've got it the wrong way.
Okay, so if you just survived the Black Plague, right, and cholera, right, huge outbreaks, Europe is on the brink of war, and you think it's logical to say, I'm just going to ignore all these circumstances and just throw a kid into this jeopardy. Even though you can't even imagine how it's all going to be all right tomorrow. That tomorrow is going to do that whole happily ever after thing. That there's like this new sun is going to rise and it's going to burn all the evil mortars up and everything will be cleansed and clean and it'll live in a pretty clean world. I mean, how bad does it have to be? I mean, I make these arguments. I mean, how brutally does your kid have to die before you say, oh shit, that wasn't worth it?
I don't know. I just don't think that's the way to think about the
Well, I think
problem.
it goes back to what you were talking about in your discussion with Ask Yourself. You know, like you're okay with putting yourself, raising a child in Compton or whatever. Like a lot of people would say that they're not. A lot of people are just, you know, they see doom on the horizon.
Well, okay, look. I mean,
Well, let me rationalize that with some sort of complete bullshit. Like, yeah, it's okay to raise a kid in a place that you know there's no chance they're going to survive the peer pressure and it's going to consume them and they're just going to be a shithead. Your kid's a guaranteed asshole.
regardless of whether it's, you know, Compton or Berkeley, California, or London or Cambodia or Thailand, wherever you're living, having a child is 100% your responsibility. So it's 100% your fault, or, you know, your glory, or whatever, if you do it right. I just see that as 100%.
So he thinks that people actually do that. That it actually turns out that if you put the effort in, you get the reward. That somehow being a good parent guarantees good kids. That there's some actual facts that indicate that's how the world works. When, no, the actual facts are that has nothing. You can keep your kid with its arms and legs, maybe. You can do minimum things. You know, protect them from overt diseases and such. But there's not much else you're going to have any control over, as much as you think. And that's demonstrated all over the world, every day, all the time. That their parents don't make kids.
It's on you. If you can't cope with life in Thailand, you can't cope. A lot of people can't. So don't have a kid. If you can't cope with life in Compton or wherever you have to live, I just don't see that as a...
Okay, so it's not a logical decision. It just has something to do with your personal sensibility. So if you like eating shit, you're a shit eater, you really do enjoy it, you should assume your kid will enjoy it. And you should thrust him to a world where we eat shit. And you should just assume that because you like it, you can make him like it. Amazing bullshit.
As a decision, I just don't see this thing you can pin on the world or pin on the city I've been living in.
I don't even understand how somebody can't see it as a huge liability. You're raising a kid on top of a garbage dump in South America. You go out every day for 12 hours and pick through garbage. Now, somehow in that environment, you're going to create a nurturing environment. You have no musical instruments, no TV, no video games, no anything. Your kid will have to just carry water for 3.5 miles and make 4 trips a day, and that's its life. That'll be its education. That's responsible. That's being rational. You're insanely stupid.
Whether it's Compton or Chiang Mai, I just see that being an example of a decision that has to be 100% on you.
Yeah, the decision is 100% on you, and the fact that you think you're going to control the outcome makes you an irresponsible person making decisions, because you frankly don't understand reality. You don't have the right to be making decisions when you don't even understand the game you're thrusting the victim into. Oosh.
But you're fronting on this idea that you were this kid's parent, that you had this really deep connection, etc., etc. And then it just seems to be disposable for these pretty evanescent reasons.
And it hasn't come back. I'm now 35 and almost a half years old, so I'm entering my 36th year, and I feel completely fine with this decision. I don't have any regrets at all. And I'm also really glad that...
Well, I'll just say, if what she's saying is true, it may be bullshit. But if it's true, so there's a little girl who was deeply bonded with you, and you thought you were going to adopt her and become your mom. Do you think she's left with regrets for the rest of her life? There was a wealthy white couple who did long-distance cycling who were going to adopt her, and who suddenly decided she doesn't matter.
Well, again, and that has to do with whose creation. She created the orphan? No, she didn't create any orphans. So you're saying now she's somehow obligated? Amazing. You're not obligated to clean up that mess that other people make. Why don't you clean up that mess? Why don't you go get that orphan and save her little life? That's just so fucking putrid. You're the one who wants to have kids, and you want to make another you. That little girl isn't good enough because she isn't part of you. She doesn't have your super baldy genetic code. You're fucking cunt.
It's fucked up. My biological daughter, you have this weird situation. She is my biological daughter, but because the court dates have been so spread out, because the French court system's been such a disaster, and because...
Oh, yeah, so this was the chick he banged before this chick, apparently. The other reckless relationship that I create a kid in, then the relationship breaks, probably because he cheated on her or some kind of bullshit, and, what responsibility do you take? None. Oh, I'm going to blame the courts. The courts are stopping me from being super daddy. Yeah, fuck you.
My ex-wife's incredibly immoral misconduct within that legal system. We've had periods of time where my daughter has no memory of who I am, where she meets me like a complete stranger.
So this is his natalist story, right? He's fallen into the failure, sank right down into the quicksand, made the mess he can't clean up because the courts are against me and she's a maniacal bitch, the thing I married, and my decision again. I made a decision to choose who the mother of my daughter was, and I didn't pick the right person. Right? So that was your bad. Not your kid's bad. Not the French court's bad. Not even your ex-wife's bad. That was your bad, asshole. You didn't take care of business, did you? You didn't make sure it was the right one, did you? And now you're going to blame everybody else for the fact that you haven't invested anything in your fucking goddamn thing that you forced into the world and now have left in some sort of, who knows what world she's going to be sentenced to because of it. Way to go, asshole. So you prove you're an asshole, and then you say, I want to be an asshole some more. Fuck.
So what, you want me to say I have no regrets? I think that's something even my daughter would regret, at least hypothetically. You think this kid has no regrets? I don't know, you think the rest of the people at the orphanage have no regrets? Or own up to it and admit that what you were doing at that orphanage was just bullshit, Dharma.
Yeah, well, admit what you were doing in your procreating was just sloppy, reckless, self-serving behavior, that you're just being a selfish cunt. You're doing what you want to do, and you're using somebody else's body, putting it at jeopardy. The bullets are going to hit it, okay? They're the ones on the tightrope. And you're taking no responsibility because the court's rigging the system. I can't get to the type. I can't do anything. Yeah, bullshit.
Tourism. It was no more meaningful than claiming you used to be a Buddhist monk because you spent 2 weeks in a Buddhist monastery on a Dharma tourism program.
Oh, right, yeah, right. So you can't know something, by reading the condensed version. Bibble babble bibbly babbly boo, and you go, I can't understand that. I don't know what this religion's about. The poor will be with you. I could take just 2 lines from Jesus. The poor will be with you always. I will be here but a short while. There. Now we're done with Jesus being the Savior, right? Because he's not going to fix the poor thing, and he thinks 40 years is a short while when everybody else didn't even live that long and had leprosy, and he's complaining. I only get 40 years not having leprosy. Gee, why can't I have some fun? And he's your savior. Right, so we're done with Christianity, right? I don't have to read anymore, do I? Haven't I got the whole story right there? I'm sure you can do the same thing with silly Buddhism. You just read the story of Buddha and you say, oh, okay, he was talking to Death. Death was very impressed by the fact that he couldn't be bribed. That's very nice. But he still wants the answer. What's it all about? What's it all about? And so finally he tricks Death into giving him the truth. And what's the truth? Well, you jump into a fire and you don't have to come back. What? So I get to know the secret of not coming back is jumping into a fire, and you just won't tell everybody else that that's the secret? Shit.
There's some monasteries where 2 weeks would feel like a long time.
Whatever. It's not on the subject.
Even if you take the racial element out of it. So what if you were a kid who was an orphan in the United States or Canada? And
yes, made by reckless slobs like you, people who just didn't give a shit about the consequences, didn't think they were mortal, so figured, oh yeah, I feel fine, even though I know statistically I could, get cancer and die and leave the kid orphaned. Well, I'll take a chance. Yeah, fuck you people. I have $10,000 in life insurance. Won't that get the kid a long way? $10,000? That's a lot, right? Shit.
You were just being taken care of by Russian tourists who showed up only speaking Russian. You had no common language. Who flew in for 2 weeks and then flew out as one stop.
Awfully boring.
So they could have these deep
boring, blah, blah,
I'm not going to say it's exploiting
blah,
the kids.
Blah, blah, blah,
but, obviously there's a way that...
Blah, blah, like everybody isn't exploiting kids. You see it all over the place. They dress them a certain way. They make them go to their little institutions. They make them play their little square dances. They make them conform. Be one of us. Be one of these people that go like this all day. Bobble-heady, bobble-heady, bobble-heady. Be one of us bobble-headies. Be a glib piece of shit like us. I never fell for it. And so that's why my life has been extremely miserable. It's because I never fell for it. Yeah, that's right. I'm not going to be part of your Borg. And maybe your kid will be smart enough not to be part of your Borg, Baldy. No, Daddy gave me such a great hairline. I'll go far in life.
It's a way that those orphanages raise money, is by bringing these people in and soliciting donations. Those requiring donations from them.
Alright, this isn't antinatalism either.
Ownership. That was a huge thing, 1950s, 60s, even 70s. A lot of people grew up with romanticized. Guess what the reality of cars is? Guess what? You've got a romanticized notion. Now you've got to deprogram yourself. You've got to figure out what the reality is in so many ways, in terms of its financial cost, the eco.
It's all been a lie from the very beginning. The whole games we play, they're all a bunch of bullshit. You're just a silly psychology with silly drives that you have trouble maintaining, controlling. What's the right word? Managing. Okay? So your management problems, you think you're allowed to spill your management problems onto other people. You're allowed to be reckless. Well, I did have sex with that hooker a couple of weeks ago, but I'm going to screw this new babe anyway. I won't tell her about that because that won't make me look very cool if I go into our first date and say, yeah, I just screwed a hooker 2 weeks ago. So I won't tell her about it. All kinds of cool stuff like that. Yeah, being human is just so fucking cool. Not.
Logical impacts. There were just a lot of reasons to be disillusioned with car ownership.
Social impacts too, just how cities are structured.
And
I come from the Motor City. I mean,
right.
It's very obvious that.
It was built for cars, not for people. Right. As opposed to Venice.
The differences in culture in a city where you can walk around to get one place to the other versus where you drive everywhere.
And whenever I was hanging out with my professors at UVic, it just was even
UVic. If I went somewhere, even if it was called, like explicitly called UVic, I wouldn't call it UVic. I'd come up with some other name for it.
In Saskatchewan, it's hilarious to me that these people do.
Oh, he's Canadian. No wonder why he's an idiot.
Their lives revolve around parking meters. About parking being this huge source of stress and so on. So, okay, you grew up with a romanticized view of...
Yeah, and then go to the countries where, okay, they can't afford cars, they're on motorcycles and bicycles, and just count up the carnage. How many people per year are, brain ruined,
Car ownership. Is that going to be your excuse till you're 65 years old? You're an adult now. What is romantic and what is not is up to you. Your parents may have told you that dandelions were poisonous. You're an adult now. You know better. You can make dandelion tea. You can make dandelion wine. You can grow a whole garden full of dandelions.
Oh, jeez. He's talking about dandelions now. Tea. This feels like cooties.
No parents. So I don't think your regrets are the only ones to be considered here, if you're making that claim.
Bibbly babbly. I guess he made a point there.
Sorry, on the topic. If you have any questions, ladies, please post them down below. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.
So that got dark quick.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts from you? You went through a period of your life when you thought you'd never want to have kids. No, I don't know. Was that like 10 years long or something? Something like that. No, maybe less.
Oh, so they're not even convinced, right? So I have psychological vacillation on the subject, and that gives them still that makes their confidence even greater now that they're making rational decisions. So it's like the suicidal person, persons who have been suicidal at periods in their lives and they become pro-lifers, and you're like, doesn't the fact that your perspective vacillates, shouldn't that give you some evidence that you might not be a very reliable witness in this finding the truth thing because you didn't find the truth reliably? That we have no ability to know whether this is just another one of your phases? Shit.
8 years or something.
No, I mean, I expected it you know, I can relate to quite a lot that you mentioned. You know, like it's expected of you. Yeah, so you know, I was with my ex-boyfriend for over 6 years, and his family was really urging me to think about getting married and have kids. My parents were, you know,
Yeah, so I guess they, you know, so that would have been so rational since it's 6 year relationship. So yeah, you know, that's what people want to invest in. They just get to it, get to it, get to it. Be reckless. Don't even develop a relationship that's actually enough before you decide to even have kids on top of it. So do what he did. Yes, fall into the reckless trap.
expecting that I would hold off on that until I had my career figured out, and I agreed with them. You know, I wasn't itching to have a kid and start a family. But also, it was just the relationship that I was in, and I expected that I would be in that relationship for the rest of my life.
Yep.
That really did influence.
So I guess if he had a lot of money, then you would have had kids. Something like that.
That's how I viewed it. And it was clear pretty soon into the relationship that I didn't feel like I didn't want to have a kid with him because just what he was into.
Yeah.
And I didn't think.
So he thought it was the guy she would be with forever, except very soon into the relationship, she noticed he was a heroin addict or something. Okay.
Think he would change. I didn't think he would really, get his act together. If we did have a kid, so.
But look, I just want to say, for some reason, that always shocked people when I said that. They just never thought of it. When people ask me, "Do you want to have kids?" Obviously, before I had a kid, I would just say it depends on the woman I'm with.
Yeah.
Because when I was with my blonde ex-girlfriend, we were together for years. Like, we might as well have been married. It was that kind of close, long-term relationship. But with her, I would have never had kids. I think she would have been a terrible parent, and etc. It was just no.
So he rifles through relationships, right? So let's get this straight. He thinks he's got it now. So this one he's got under control now. Yeah, sure.
If I stayed with her forever, then that would have been never having kids, basically. Mm-hmm. Yes, the adopting is kind of a different question. I mean, I never got into that. I mean, maybe it would.
Oh yeah, maybe it's all right if it's an adopted kid. I don't care. She can kill it. Yeah, she's a terrible mother, but yeah, I'd let her take care of an adopted kid. What sense does that make? Again, just more bigotry.